Welcome to Cinemaholics. So usually I'd be like, oh, hey, it's me, John, and there's Will, but I do not recognize you anymore, Will, because you shaved your beard off.
Sure.
You took a chainsaw to your face.
No.
And it's kind of thrown me off.
I did not take a chainsaw to my face. What a violent image to
You
conjure.
had a pretty big beard.
I did have a beard, and now I don't have a beard. But this is an audio form, so people don't know that.
I don't know. I like to think the way we talk, listeners can really see it in their mind's eye, you know? They probably knew before you said anything.
They can hear my beard rustling on the mic.
Yeah, I mean, it has a very distinct sound. So we're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes, we are.
We've never talked about these movies together, have we?
No, I was going to actually ask you your relationship to these movies, because I have a impartial, I guess, relationship to these movies. I've definitely seen the first one at least a handful of times. I don't know about you.
Same here.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. So this is weird for me, okay?
Okay.
I've only seen the first one.
Okay.
I've never seen any of the others.
Well, you're in luck because this is supposed to be a direct sequel to the original film, which makes zero sense at all.
They're doing the Halloween 2018
they are
thing.
Very shamelessly and in a very cynical fashion trying to rip off the 2018 Halloween reboot or
Oh
prequel.
yeah, they clear it's so obvious, but it's funny too because the timing is unbelievable because we just had Halloween Kills and Scream,
yes,
which Scream is like doing nothing but making fun of this, and it's just chef's kiss in terms of Netflix releasing this, and it's on Netflix. It's weird, isn't it?
Well, that's the kind of fascinating thing about the film, and I'm going to try to pull up the Wikipedia page, which is, obviously Wikipedia.
For the film?
Yeah, because this film, I don't know if you even know the storied history that this movie has, as far as its very troubled release and production.
Because it involves Leatherface, right? Which came out 2017. While we were in the middle of Cinemaholics, we didn't talk about that movie, right? I didn't see it.
Well, that's a completely separate film. But yeah, going to what you're saying, that ever since the original film, obviously Tobe Hooper's original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is basically a masterpiece of the indie horror
it's incredible
genre, because it is one of the films that its indiness is, I think, so crucial and key to what makes that movie so successful. It has genuine kind of grimy texture to it. The characters feel so real, and everything about it became so controversial and so lived in because it had that kind of limited quality to it. Like, there's so much you don't know about the family. There's so much you don't know about the man who became Leatherface. It's just, what you don't know is what makes that movie so rich in many respects. It's kind of key to why that movie is so remembered and cherished as a indie horror film. And the horror genre, it's being what it is, has always been like, let's return to that well again. But they keep making it glossier. They keep trying to make it more studio friendly, and that's taking away from what makes those movies, or made that first movie at least, so exceptional. And even Tobe Hooper seemed to recognize that with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which I know
he did it like a decade later, 1986,
and
which I've never seen the sequel.
So the sequel, it's not a movie I love, but I definitely respect it more so than basically any other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that I have seen.
It's a comedy, isn't it? They just sort of parodied. Yeah,
it is basically what I think Rob Zombie has been trying to do for the past however many years he's been directing films.
What?
Because, Rob Zombie's, I think his favorite film is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you've seen any of the Rob Zombie films, he's definitely tried to emulate that
he's
style.
Clearly a child of those movies.
Right, but the second one, it's him working in the studio vein. So Tobe Hooper's like, I'm not going to make that movie again. That is just a lightning in a bottle success. So what I'm going to do is just completely bombastic and make it, with these kooky characters, and really, like you said, make it more of a farce, and have Dennis Hopper really ham it up and chew the scenery and all this stuff. And it's not a great film, but at least it goes in a completely different direction and recognizes that the budget is going to make it a totally different film with a totally different vibe. And kind of similar to Halloween 3, where they tried to anthologize the series and push away from what made the original Halloween great, all the subsequent sequels have been trying in vain mostly to recreate the magic of the first film, and a lot of those movies don't work because you just are never going to have that same magic again that either Halloween
I did not expect you to have so much to say about this. Is you've been waiting for this moment. I didn't know you were so passionate about the Texas Chainsaw franchise.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that I've only really seen a handful of these films before the 2022 film.
There's a lot.
I've seen
the first I'm looking
two.
At the list right now. I haven't heard of some of these movies.
I've seen the first one, and I've seen the second film, and I've seen the 2003 remake, the one with Jessica Biel.
I remember that one. I didn't watch it, but I remember it was Michael Bay, right?
Yeah.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's
Dunes, yeah.
Well, it was weird about that too is the first movie, Chainsaw, is 2 words, and then it's 1 word every movie onward, but the remake, they do the 1 word, and that's the only difference.
Sure.
And now we just have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like a parody. I mean, it's just literally reading this is like that meme where it's just you're constantly doing weird things to the title as a sequel instead of just adding a number. Because the third one is Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Mm-hmm. It's like what is this, Rambo? It's there's even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Next Generation. This is GD Degrassi. What are we doing?
That's the one with Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey, right? That's one of the ones I haven't seen.
I've never even, I had no idea that they were even in. This was 1995.
Yeah. And
first time ever even hearing of this.
Prior to this film, that one was considered the nadir of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, I think.
The nadir? Wait, what do you mean?
It was considered the low point of the franchise.
Oh, the low point. Okay.
The nadir, right? Am I using that word correctly? I've misused it before.
You probably are. It's just when I heard you, the way you said it, I was like, wait, are you saying it's good?
No, I've misused that word before, so I apologize.
I think you're using the word right. I think it's just the way you said it.
Yeah. It's one of those words I always see written out, but I've never really said that often. So if I am mispronouncing, I apologize. But that one, I
think you're right.
That one, is considered a low point of the franchise, but I have seen another considered low point of the franchise, which is a film called Texas Chainsaw. No massacre in that title, or I think its actual title is Texas Chainsaw 3D, which is with Alexandra.
I remember this.
Daddario.
Alexandra Daddario. I think that's how you say it.
That one is very forgettable to me, but I know some people really dislike that one pretty passionately. But yeah,
Scott Eastwood was in that too. Wow.
If you say so. I really don't remember that one much of all.
Trey Songz?
What was that?
What in the world? Trey Songz was in this too.
I don't know. I know it existed. I know it was one of those movies, those horror movies that came out the first weekend of January, trying to capitalize on that, usually very profitable time for horror movies, having a high profile horror film be the first film of said year. I think that was 2013. Well,
you skipped over the prequel,
right.
I guess.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Texas Chainsaw,
the beginning,
which
I haven't seen. Like I said, I've only seen the first 2, the remake, and Texas Chainsaw 3D before this one. So the other ones I have not seen.
And Michael Bay co-produced it. I did not know that. Wow. This is such a storied history.
That's a prequel though to the remake, right? Or is that supposed to be?
That's that's what I'm thinking based on I'm looking at the producers here. It would make sense, I guess. That's why I was wondering, when I went into this new one, is is this going to be tying to the remake version of this? And then immediately I was from the first scene, I was no. They're making it clear that no, they're pretending those movies don't exist.
But I know this is Fede Álvarez, who obviously had pretty good success. He didn't direct the film, but he produced it. And did he?
Story credit.
Yeah, I was going to say, he got a writing credit on it. And he obviously is... he's come into fame through directing the Evil Dead remake and also directing the first Don't Breathe film. I think he produced and co-wrote Don't Breathe 2.
I quite like both of those movies.
You mean the first Don't Breathe and the Evil Dead remake? Or you haven't seen Don't Breathe 2, I know. I knew you took a stance and chose
I never watched it.
Not to see it. But
it was more of just I didn't have a reason to see it. I was the first one's good. Why? I don't know. Nothing about the marketing. I was just
that's
and
fair.
I knew we weren't going to talk about it.
And that movie is kind of oddly fascinating because it takes a sort of inconsistent tone with where it stands on the lead character, who is the villain of the previous film, now like not the antagonist but not the anti-hero of the sequel, but he's like the main character of it.
I'm glad they didn't do that with this movie, I guess. I mean, it would be even worse probably. But wait, what about Leatherface? I don't really know like what Leatherface's whole deal is, because this is saying here, I brought up the Wikipedia, they were going to do a sequel to Texas Chainsaw 3D. I don't know, it was Texas Chainsaw 3D a sequel, or like what are these movies? I don't know what anything is.
I mean, that's kind of going into the fairly confusing legacy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, such as it is that, I know, like I said, like they're all trying to emulate or continue on the legacy of the original film. And I think that's going to be in vain outside of capitalistic hopes, because you're just not going to recreate that magic. I mean, the only thing you can really hope for, like a film like this, is that you're going to just get, people hoping that it's just at least passable. And usually that's not the case with these films.
So what I'm seeing here is Leatherface takes place in the 1960s. So it's another prequel. And then Texas Chainsaw 3D takes place in the 70s after the original film. Mm-hmm. But like it's still the 70s. I mean, that's not a bad idea, actually. Like, I kind of wish that's what this movie was. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
okay.
Going back to this film, what I was saying before with its kind of storied history. So after Leatherface, which I haven't seen, I don't think you said you saw either. No. Lionsgate had hopes to continue the franchise, to keep it going, but I guess they just kind of stalled too long, or whatever it was. The studio, they lost the rights to that film, and I think Legendary took it up shortly thereafter, and that's when Alvarez and I think another producer, I'm trying to look up his name, Rodo Seguas, I'm probably butchering that, I apologize, but they were producing it with a few other folks, and they hired like a pair of filmmakers, Ryan and Andy Tohill, to basically do, like you said, like this Halloween 2018 approach to the thing. And I think they jumped ship like the first week of production on this film. So the director of this film came on shortly thereafter, sort of like a director for hire, I believe, David Blue Garcia. And I don't know that name or recognize it from anywhere else, so I'm going to assume that he's either making his like directorial debut with this project, or he's just not really someone who's like coming in with a vision for the project. He's just sort of like, whatever the producers run for this movie, that's what I'm going to deliver. Hopefully on time and under budget.
So he made one other film, not as well known, a very small indie film called Tejano from a few years ago. Around the time it looks like they were optioning to do this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell this is a director who hasn't made a lot of films before, but we'll talk about that soon, I think.
Yeah, but basically there was a lot of conflict with the production. And when they were testing the film, I think they shot this in 2020. After they tested it, got, according to IMDb, which, is always a flawed source, but it got universally panned and, just torn apart with test screenings. And Legendary was basically just like, I don't know what we're going to do with this. And it kind of became a hot potato project where they kept bouncing it to different people and studios and distributors being like, do you want to release it? Do you want to release it? And eventually Netflix just picked it up and was just like, yeah, we can dump this at some point. When are you going to dump it? I don't know, sometime. And I guess they just chose to put it out kind of quietly in February. Like, there wasn't a lot of buildup for this release. Like, I know there was a lot of talk about they had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that they were going to release at some point. It seemed,
and you were even sort of being like, hey, what's that? Isn't there a Netflix movie coming out? And we were like, I don't know. Right. And then you're like, oh, is it the Kanye West documentary? It's like, no, it's a movie. And then eventually we got there.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the writing, as I've mentioned, was sort of on the wall. This was going to be bad. I would be surprised if anyone walked into this or, put it on Netflix hoping it was going to be good. I mean, if they were hoping, it was just, in vain. I guess they were just really wanting the best for this very tortured franchise. But obviously, this has been pretty easily one of the worst reviewed movies of the year, and it'll probably remain as such going into the rest of the year. And I don't really blame anyone for strongly criticizing the film, because it is a deeply nihilistic cynical film that is taking the goodwill that people have somehow retained for this franchise and kind of hoping they can milk that for fairly cynical purposes. And yeah, so I don't blame anyone for not liking this film. Basically, yeah.
Right. So, you know, I'll set this up, I guess, but the first thing I want to say is after watching this movie, and, you know, it's not very long, right? You know, it's 81 minutes.
Oh, yeah, it's been hacked.
You get through it pretty fast.
Yeah.
My thought after I watched this, and I wrote this on Letterboxd because I knew exactly how I felt as soon as I finished the film, and I sat down, typed away, and I said, you know, I really think what I hope after, and I mean this sincerely, I want everybody involved in the making of this film, David Blue Garcia and Fede Álvarez, all the screenwriters, directors, not the actors, but the dudes. I want them to take a little break. Take a little break from making films. I'm saying like 5 years. Just quit. You know, you can come back, but just think about what you've done. Like really sit down and analyze. Like I had a little bit of an oopsie with this franchise, and you know, just think about it and figure it out. You know, and then we'll see in a little bit, and then a few years from now. Can't wait to see what you do with some Blumhouse movie. Who knows? That's about where I'm at now. The story of this movie, hilariously, there is a story. It's just Texas Chainsaw Massacre, no article and a group of, I guess, like Gen Z light. Like they're like a couple of them are definitely Gen Z, like high schoolers or right out of high school. A couple of them are older. It's confusing. They live in Austin, live in the big city, and they're like, well, we're gonna, you know, start a restaurant. I think it was, right? A restaurant.
So this is where it gets kind of confusing. They seemingly acquire a town of, you know, a dead, you know, just kind of like a dead in the middle of Texas sort of town that is, you know, the home town of our lead Leatherface, who is still living there in an orphanage, which is very confusing because he wasn't an orphan in the original film. Like he had a family, and even if, you know, that family didn't, you know, the things didn't turn out well for them, he was still an adult. So it's kind of vague as to why he's in an orphanage at all. But that's, you know, that's kind of one of many questions that people will have watching this film.
Sure. And I was confused because there's an elderly woman he treats like a mother figure named Ginny, and I do not remember any character like that. I wasn't sure if I was just missing something, but the movie literally opens with being like a news or sort of like a trailer for a documentary or something for this town, and it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's just giving you a recap of the movie. Sure, okay, and here's the final girl. She's the one who survived. She's still trying to find him, and you know, first oopsie of the movie.
Okay.
Big old oops. How does she not find him?
Yeah, that's the funniest thing.
It's the funniest. God, like he's just this big guy. He's still in that town.
Yeah, he didn't go anywhere. He just went to the orphanage. So you could. Yeah. First place.
She's been looking for him for 50 years.
And that's where I kind of. So I'm going to be. It seems from your initial response that you are overwhelmingly negative on the film, which I understand. Like I said,
I want this movie to unexist.
And for me, I think I'm sort of in the so bad it's good camp for me, because I'm not 100% sure.
You gotta be.
I'm not 100% sure what the intentions of the filmmakers were, or if it just kind of got butchered in the process. But all the stuff that's making that they're copy and pasting from other legacy sequels, including, like we said, Halloween 2018, is so sort of carelessly shoehorned into this film that it basically, I'm assuming indirectly, but there's a part of me that wonders intentionally if it's satirizing this sort of new genre of horror films, because like you said, like that.
No, it is not. It's not.
You say that, but like
it's sort of being like, they're trying to be Eli Roth. They're trying to be Rob Zombie. They're trying to do all of this stuff that is just
it's inconsistent, to be sure. But all this stuff with Sally, as you mentioned, that the final girl who comes back character is so sort of indifferent to the overarching narrative of the film, including like what happens with their character later on, which that scene I think is probably the funniest in the whole film, just because it kind of just takes the whole piss out of the new Halloween movies. And
how does it take the piss out of it?
Well, I mean, I'd have to
it's
get
just
into spoilers.
Mimicking it, but making her like okay, yeah, I won't spoil anything, but
I mean, I can just tell you, and you can edit this out. But I mean,
no, we'll get to it. We'll get to the Sally of it all later, because I think it's one of the most egregiously terrible aspects of this movie. But
yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah. But I mean, the main characters of the film are both Leatherface and these sort of, like you said, influencer sort of characters. Some of them are in high school. Some of them, I'm not 100% sure how old they are, but they're in the Zoomer millennial age gap, that generation.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stew. We do have another one of these, like Gen Z and millennials are the same. Yeah, like there's no difference.
But the main,
nothing matters.
The final girl of this film, or like the main character of the film, is Elsie Fisher. I forget her character's name, but I didn't even recognize her until the end credits, to be honest. She
has like dark, short hair. She's gotten a little bit older. She looks different from when we saw her in 8th grade, the movie, not the class.
But there's a fairly egregious thing that the movie introduces with her character as far as a backstory, where she is a victim of a school shooting.
They're trying to do the thing where, like, a victim of like assault, right? We've seen that in a lot of horror films, and it's always the allegory. It's always the metaphor, right? The final girl, you know, kind of like taking revenge. They try to do it with a school shooting. And that was like, when this happened and they have her like do something in this movie to like mirror that was when I was like, these guys need to just like reevaluate their choices, because they're taking something that's just like so traumatic for people and just handling it so terribly. And it's just like so dumb. Like, it's dumb for them to do it. It's irresponsible for them to do it. They do it terribly. Like, maybe there was a way to do it that it would have worked. I don't know. But I think way more talented people should have been in charge of that, because maybe they wouldn't have messed it up this badly. It really made me mad.
That's understandable, and I understand your reaction, but I feel I'm of kind of two minds on this. One is the objective one, where it's just like, doesn't really need to be in this movie. It serves little point other than kind of the cheaply make her character have some death that is obviously not really there. But also, that's pretty true to what the exploitation genre is. They take real life things like this and they add the characters. You may not like it or agree with it, but that it is true to what the B-movie exploitation genre is. And that,
like I said, it's not the inclusion of it, it's how it's handled.
Sure.
Because like here's the thing that I'm going to say that's maybe, is going to be surprising. Because I actually don't think the concept is bad here.
Sure.
Like, I actually think, like, it's super derivative.
Yeah.
It's super derivative of a setup. But like, the idea of it, like the concept of let's just like erase all of this other Texas Chainsaw stuff. It worked for those other movies. It would work for this, right?
Yeah.
And it's just taking a more small scale, lean approach, really emphasize on the gore and kills, make it this small town, really focus on the location. The concept's there. It's like, here are the types of characters. Here are the things that they're interested in. And, like, add some things about gentrification. That's interesting. Okay, well, these have always been pretty political movies. We got a political stuff in there. It's the execution. The execution is so unbelievably bad that, like, you do play with fire with these sorts of things. And I think they're just like they're on fire. They're just throwing it at me. And I'm like, please stop. I don't want it.
Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from. I think that's valid, but I also, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is that this is so lazy and so callous and so sort of filled with contempt for a whole generation of people and even a whole generation of trauma that kind of goes back.
You said cynical. It's, I think, mean-spirited.
Oh, it's absolutely mean-spirited. But that's going back to what, like I said, that's going back to what I'm saying, where it feels like this is a very mean-spirited lark on a burgeoning genre of horror films that are coming out. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, so I don't want to give the movie too much credit. But it seems like this whole movie is just kind of taking the piss out of what horror movies are becoming. And I think that's more that these filmmakers are not really well attached to the right genre. I saw someone on Letterboxd, I believe it was Josh Lucas, said that they're basically trying to make a Friday the 13th reboot, but they're doing it through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre genre or the franchise.
I didn't know the actor Josh Lucas was on.
Sorry,
Letterboxd.
Josh Lewis. I apologize. Sorry, Josh Lewis. I misspoke. But I agree with that sentiment in that, like, I think this is trying to be a broader, more schlocky movie but they're trying to make Leatherface into this sort of like almost like larger in life figure. And what made Leatherface so terrifying was how real and unsettling he was. And to try to do that with if it's a direct sequel, he has to be like 80 something years old now, right?
Yeah, because it's like mid 70s and like maybe he's like 20. I feel like that's the young. He's such a big guy, but okay. He ate his Wheaties. 20 years old in the 70s, 50 years later, 70 years old.
Right.
Like at the youngest. That's
Which
what?
It's confusing, but it's like that works for something like Halloween 2018 because Michael Myers is not meant to be human. Like he has a human form, but he's the embodiment of evil. So there is like this metaphysical aspect to him where if you try to kill him, you only make him stronger. That's like the whole idea of his character. And that's been accepted since the get-go. But from Tobe Hooper's movie, Leatherface is very much supposed to be a real person that, he's like this hillbilly inbred character who has no morals, and he grew up in this really deprived town, and he's very attached to his humanity, and he is a cannibal. Like he literally eats people, which is not in this movie at all. There's no cannibalism, which is also very bizarre, I guess. I'm not that I'm advocating for cannibalism, but just that's a big. I was
like, geez, well, Ash,
that's a big part of the Texas Chainsaw
don't show us how hungry
franchise. That's kind of for a movie that's just nihilistic and bleak about humanity. It's weird that they didn't even reference the cannibalism. I don't know.
I guess it was just like they really wanted that lean runtime, I guess.
He
didn't have time to eat anybody. The whole thing happens like in a day.
I know. Leatherface is editing this movie with his chainsaw. He's just hacking and slacking, just getting to the meat of it, I guess. But I just think it's a very confused movie in the broad scheme of things. And it's a very, as you said, very juvenile and dumb film at the same time. Like I've seen Piles of Dirt. They're smarter than this movie that make more sense than this movie. But
they're auctioning off houses? Yeah. It's just dumb. Like, who does that? But they're going to be able to eat brunch in this place? Who's going to eat brunch? Yeah. Hit Leatherface?
All right, calm down, Jerry Seinfeld. But, but at the same time, this movie is so unpretentious with itself. And so, like I said, gleefully sort of nihilistic that I almost weirdly have to respect it at the same time. And I know that doesn't bode well with you, but that's just where I'm coming at with this film.
It's like respecting like the biggest jackass at the bar, it's just like, yeah, he's not pretentious, but he's just a total douche. Like there's just nothing to me that like redeems this movie for me at all. Like, yeah, cancel this movie. I'm like, that line of dialogue, Will, I don't care if I spoil it.
That was in the trailer, apparently. I heard that line
Try
before.
Anything and you're canceled?
The dialogue in this movie is horrendous. I'm not going to defend the writing at all. Yeah.
Like, come on. And it's not even just that it's like one guy saying that. It's like the whole bus.
But that will say.
And it's just one thing after another.
That bus scene.
That bus scene is pretty wild.
It's pretty good.
Here's the thing.
The bus scene I actually kind of vouch for. And I will vouch for the gore, which is surprisingly strong and memorable.
The practical effects are fine.
I actually think the gore
they get that stuff across.
Is outright good. I would say if there's one objectively good thing about the movie, it is the gore and the practical effects.
But what undercuts the gore for me, no pun intended, is just how uninteresting the cat and mouse sequences are. Like, it's fine when it's in the bus and they just get to it, because like, what are you going to do? But like, it just goes on. Like, for a movie that's only 81 minutes, they go on and on with like creeping around the house, not trying to get his attention, being really stupid about how you're going to get out of this situation.
Right.
And like the whole ending thing where we just have a couple characters left and they're just making choices that I'm like, this guy, it's not Michael Myers, or he's not supposed to be. I guess he is, but like, I don't know. It beggars belief, like how things just keep the reversals and like, no, not yet. And then now, and then nope. And then it's just stop. I'm done. No more.
Yeah.
Get out of Texas.
Yeah. And I believe this was not shot in Texas. It was like Bulgaria. Sorry, Bulgaria.
I'm not sure why. I guess for COVID reasons, huh?
I was going to say for tax purposes, but sure, you can believe that it was also
part
COVID.
Of it. I mean, if you wanted to film a place that kind of looks almost like Texas, you could probably find a place around Atlanta. But I don't know. I guess that like dry, humid kind of, that might be kind of tough, huh?
Let's be real. Outside of Austin, I mean, how much of Texas is really following protocols with COVID? I don't know, film productions might be different. I don't want to speak out ill of that, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, I don't know. I mean, this is, as you were mentioning, kind of evoking that sort of 2000s or mid 2000s sort of Eli Roth heavy gore film where it's basically gore porn. Like, I don't really like to use that term, but it's kind of...
It reminds me, because you mentioned Friday the 13th, it reminds me of the remake from, like, 2010 or whatever it was.
I didn't see that, but I'll take your word for it. I mean, the photography of the film is fairly handsome for what it is, but as I've kind of mentioned before, I think that kind of undermines what's going. It's too sleek. It's too style. Like the original film looks gorgeous, but it also still has that grime and grittiness that is so vital to what the movie's going for. And this movie just doesn't have any of that grime or grittiness at all. It's so polished over as either a Netflix film or a legendary film, a former theatrical studio film, that it fails even try to have that grime that was so crucial to Tobe Hooper's original film.
Yeah, I think the thing that still bugs me about it the most, although I did like, I saw one person joke about the movie and say they should have called it the Tesla Chainsaw Massacre. I thought that was fun. But that speaks to me, like, just the image of pop culture we have right now. We've touched on it. Just the whole divide between Gen X and boomers and millennials and Gen Z. And it's just...
it's fairly... I
think that stuff is interesting, but it's like, it's just such a low-hanging fruit. Like, they really didn't even try very hard with this, you know? Like,
yeah, it's kind of tired.
There's all the cliches, all the sort of easy jokes about it. There's a lot of, like, you know, red state, like, over sympathizing too, with the, just in the context of, like, the Confederate flag and that character, and it's like you're misjudging him. And then while I'm watching that, I'm like, well, you can do that, but I just felt like movies like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, like, that movie really does that super well.
Sure,
and that's all this movie does, is remind me of better stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, it reminds you of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is
not as much. I mean, you'd think, but
I don't know. I mean, it's clearly trying to be some sort of sequel, but it seems to have, as you said, basic contempt for not only that franchise or the horror franchise at large, but basically a whole generation of two of people. And that's fine, I guess. But like you said, like, the characterizations are so broad and so lazy that obviously they're just characters who are lambs for the slaughter, which are kind of fine. But it's also, you know, if it's just going to be 80 something minutes of, you know, slicing and dicing people, it's not the worst thing in the world, in my opinion, but it's also kind of just like, what are we really doing here? Sure.
Yeah. I will say one other, I guess I'm just saying positive things to be diplomatic, but I guess the look of Leatherface is, like, not bad. Like, if you're going to do an older version of Leatherface, you're going to do, like, the skin mask, you're going to do all that stuff. They got that across pretty well. Like, he looks pretty terrifying, very imposing. I believed that this was Leatherface, even though the timelines don't really match up. And so you can give it half a star for that, I guess.
Sure. And I did hear, I don't know if I haven't confirmed this, but apparently the chainsaw used is the actual original chainsaw from the original film. So that's pretty cool.
That just makes me angry.
Sure.
Okay. I'm opening up the spoiler stuff because I want to mention the whole subplot where we have the Jamie Lee Curtis stand-in. Now, we don't have the original actress.
She passed away.
Who played Sally. She passed away, 2014. I saw that. And, you know, they had a replacement. This actress is Olwen Ferrer. Ferrer. I don't know how to pronounce that. But she just kind of, wow, do they build this up to? She's just like, this is my moment. And we already mentioned just the nonsense of how she wasn't able to track this guy down.
Right. She became a ranger in the area, and she's been searching for him for 50 years, and he was upstairs. Yeah. I mean, I'll give credit where it's due. This is a pretty good joke that they set up where they kind of, like, do the hollow beat per beat. Like, I'm going to get my vengeance after all this year. And it's just like you said, like, you've been living in the same state. Why don't you just go back to the place where you were? I know it's kind of traumatic there, but
how was the investigation? Yeah, it's just like, at least with Halloween, there was a reason he was captured. Yeah.
I mean, I would have been more forgiving if they were trying to actually do this, to be like, I know where he lives, but I'm just too terrified to go back there and deal with it. But it's more just like, I haven't been able to find him. Like you said, it's just like, he's right there. He didn't go anywhere.
He was wearing a mask. oh yeah, he's wearing a mask, I can't tell. And then you see this guy and you're just like, it could be anybody. It could be that woman, Ginny. Like everyone, and not a big town.
Yeah, but anyway,
but yes,
yeah. They set up
that whole thing.
Yeah, so they set up the whole thing with her being like, I'm going to get my revenge. They have the whole thing where it's like, I'm going to have my big third act moment where I'm going to, go toe to toe with my tormentor and finally take down Leatherface. She goes up there, immediately gets a chainsaw to the stomach, guts fly everywhere, and she gets thrown into a pile of trash, which is so funny.
Not immediately. What she does first is lock two scared and bloodied teenagers in the car,
which is incredibly dumb.
Being like, sorry, you're not going anywhere. Basically, like, ensures at least one of them's going to die.
Exactly.
Like, right? Like they would have survived, but and then she even gives terrible advice. It's just like, if you don't chase him, he's going to haunt you. And it's just like, you're telling her to basically die.
Well, that's another thing, right? Is that that's why I'm wondering if this is supposed to be satirical. Because it's like, obviously with Laurie, with Jamie Lee Curtis in the original film, like the whole thing in 2018 is that she's gotten smarter. She's adapted. She's obviously still traumatized, but she's like learned to like adapt and like prepare for this happening. It somehow seems that with Sally's character, she's gotten dumber somehow over all this time and playing.
She literally standing over him with a shotgun. Right. What are you waiting for?
And then gets a chainsaw to the belly.
Do you remember me? Like, what is that gonna do?
Gets a chainsaw
if he remembers you.
Yeah, and
why?
And gets thrown into a big pile of trash. I mean, she gets like, a somewhat heroic moment where she starts shooting him again. But just that whole idea of like building up that she's going to be like the big savior coming back just, is fairly useless in the scheme of things. Actually makes things worse, all things considered. And then just basically dies in a pile of trash, which is horrendously disrespectful to the original film, but also as a joke,
really is
kind of funny. It's a very dark, mean-spirited joke, but it's also kind of funny. And if it is a joke, if that's supposed to be serious, then they obviously failed.
I thought it was supposed to be serious. I wish I had your optimism. So, I wish I was having a fun time and relaxing. You seem to be in good spirits, but no, the thing though, I can get past all that stuff because it's like whatever. But like the image of Elsie Fisher's character, where it's been set up of like the trauma, like she got shot, she was in a school shooting, that's her trauma, that's her wound.
Yeah.
And then for this movie to be like, well, she picks up the gun and now she's the shooter,
right? And
it's just sort of like reclaiming her trauma in this way. It's just gross. Like, and then she can't even fire the gun, and it's just like, it just really like again, it's like. There's a way to do it that's not this bad. I'm not saying you can't, but like it's just like they didn't put the time and effort into something so particular that obviously is like you're playing with fire, like I said before. You really are. And I just do not get the sense that these directors really cared or were really trying. Sure. They were just like, we're having, goofing off and like, gore and just like blah. And then, if that's the case, then don't add this stuff. Like, just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think in general, this is a wildly misconceived film because, trying to make a commercial slasher about Leatherface is just an instantly bad idea. And as you've mentioned, sort of including the school shooter aspect and having that overlap a scene where Leatherface is going ham and killing all these influencers in a bus is just sort of the wildly misguided decisions that are sort of fascinating and baffling to me at the same time. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty objectively a bad film, and there's no denying that's really dumb, but I didn't have an awful time watching it. I found it surprisingly pretty watchable, but I wouldn't advocate for most people to watch it. I would just say that compared to some of the bad movies we've gotten of late that I found less engaging and less watchable, this one was at least one I could throw on and say engage with for at least, 80 something minutes. So
were you drinking during this movie?
No, I was actually dead sober.
Okay, I was too. I wish I had been drinking, but and I would even say like it's not just like I'm not saying any of this because like I feel like these aren't my politics. I think this movie's mean to everybody. I think it's mean to like the people who live in this town, and it's just like it's so hypocritical and it's so cliche about like the people who live out here. And again, it's something that the original was so much better about.
Of course, yeah.
But at the same time, like these days, like we could do something more subtle and with more nuance because there's obviously more nuance to be had, and it's just like, no, it's just low hanging fruit. Sure. It's just easy, like swish, you know. They just went for whatever. Straight to Netflix, you know. I thought Don't Look Up was too like in your face with its themes, but you know,
I mean,
Netflix has done it again.
Well, like I said, not a Netflix original, but I agree that it needs to be doing more, it needs to be doing less to really pull off what it's trying to do. And it's like I said, very messy, very kind of all over the place. It feels like too many cooks are in the kitchen as far as like studio meddling, bouncing between studios, probably doing a bunch of reshoots.
Knives, too many. Yeah.
You know, I think there are a lot of things that were added and scrapped from the movie, and so there's like a lot of just kind of jarring decisions and inconsistent characterizations here that just really muddle the movie up even more and make it even more baffling and less consistent. But as I've said before, I mean, it's also broadly sort of unpretentious about what it's trying to do. And I don't think it's, even though it has some serious stuff that's dancing around and trying to incorporate, I don't think the movie itself is really trying to make any grand statements or try to do anything really revolutionary with the franchise. I think it's just trying to cash in on it, which is obviously deeply cynical. But at the same time, it's not the least entertaining addition to this franchise. I at least remember this more than I remember Texas Chainsaw 3D. So make of that what you will, I guess.
Well, I'll ask you that again in like 10 years. We'll see about that.
I mean, like I said, the deaths were at least pretty good. I don't even remember any of the deaths in Texas Chainsaw.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game. We have 108 reviews counted. Not a lot for, you know, kind of a budgeted horror movie, but whatever.
What was the budget, if you know?
I think I have it right here, or maybe I don't, so I don't know. I imagine it's not very high.
I would guess somewhere between 40 and 60 million. That's
probably a pretty good guess, yeah. Kind of mid-size. But okay. 108 reviews. What do you think the critic RT score is?
13%?
No, 31%.
Oh, I
way higher than I thought it would be.
You got the numbers
backwards.
You
literally... Yeah, you were looking in a mirror or something. Okay, audience score. What do you think about that? 500 plus ratings, not verified.
This one, I could honestly see this going either way. I could see, because like we say, it's an objectively bad film. I'm not going to defend it. I don't even know if I really like it that much. I just kind of have some begrudging respect for what it's trying to do, and that's being pretty light with the term respect. But I would say 46%?
32%.
Okay.
It's only one higher.
So critics and audience agree. Score.
Yeah. They finally agree on something. This movie is what brought America together. The divisiveness is over. And I'm looking at like there are some fresh, reviews here. I know one of these reviewers, Lindsay Travis, gave it a positive review. Nate Adams and Kate Sanchez. I don't agree with Kate very often, but some people on here seem to like it. They didn't rate it high, to be clear. They're giving the fresh tomato, but it's like C+, B-, that kind of thing.
I'm kind of between a C and a C+ on it, I think, if I were to grade it. So, yeah.
Disgust. This is an F. All right.
You would give this an F?
Yes.
I think it's F. At least a D for the gore.
F for forget about it. All right. Letterboxd rating. What do you think that is? 0 to 5.
2.3.
2.1. We're pretty close. Not bad.
No cinema score, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no. I mean, it wasn't in theaters, right?
I mean, it was supposed to be, but it didn't end up going to theaters, so far as I know.
Yeah, no cinema score. So, folks in Vegas, that's probably where we got that RT score, I guess. I don't know. I imagine the cinema score would be pretty low after that. Probably like a C+ or something.
Yeah.
All right. That's our bonus show.
Sure.
That's all we got, I guess. Are you gonna like recommend though that people see the original Texas Chainsaw, or were there any of the other like
the original?
What would you recommend people see instead of this? Like the original, and then like any of the other ones?
I mean, the original for sure. I mean, the original.
Obviously, yeah. If you haven't watched that,
yeah. I mean, if you haven't watched the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what are you doing? around here.
Yeah, you spent 45 minutes listening to us talk about it. No, get that time back.
I mean, go.
But what about the sequels, though?
The second one, I'd have to watch it again to firm up my opinion, but I would not recommend it.
Okay.
I would say it's worth a watch. I think if I rewatched it, I would actually grow to like it more because I respect what it's doing. The other ones that I've seen, I didn't really have a strong opinion on and would not watch or recommend. I would probably recommend this one over the 2003 remake and the Texas Chainsaw 3D movie, but that's not really saying much.
All right. Sounds like it's all pretty bottom of the barrel stuff. I hope Elsie Fisher is able to get much better roles after this.
Yeah, I mean,
she deserves it.
I'm assuming she just wanted to get attached to a studio property because I'm kind of baffled that she's involved with this film at all.
The only thing she has done since 8th grade besides this was Addams Family.
What a shame.
But the animated one.
I know.
Oh yeah, I don't know. She voiced some character. Yeah. I don't know which one.
I mean,
but she's in it. She is in another movie that's filming right now called My Best Friend's Exorcism, or it might even be done screening or filming. But that's a horror film, another horror film. So I don't know. Maybe she wants that horror money.
I mean,
what are you gonna do?
Respect. I can dig
she's
that.
Fishing.
Yeah, good. Fishing. Yeah. No. I mean, I can. I love horror movies. So if she wants to follow that train, by all means, but I just hope she gets some good stuff in the future because she's a great actress. She did a great job in 8th grade, so hope for the best for her.
Whoa, she's going to be in another film here. It looks like this might be a festival film called Latchkey Kids.
Okay.
And she stars in it with Alan Kim, who was in Minari, that kid.
Okay. Sounds promising.
Yeah. I wonder, this is a black comedy.
Okay.
Is this another A24 movie in our future?
Has this
Guess we'll find out.
Premiered, or is it set to be premiering somewhere?
Production began last summer.
Okay.
So
Still in
that's
post?
all it says.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah.